Hello and welcome to the Temple Mount podcast. My name is Shogun. Today we have another session of our World of Darkness campaign. Joining me today is my friend Shad Viano Feroth, and joining the campaign today, Lady Estramia, also known as Lucy Fairbrook. And before we get started, this is the Temple Mount Discord server. You should join the server and you can find our past episodes of this campaign on our podcasts on YouTube and BitChute. That being said, welcome my friends. Thank you for playing with us tonight. Looking forward to getting into it. Shad, can I ask you to give a summary of your memory of the last gaming session, please?
Sure. So after a brief time of testing and training, Michael, the newly sired Gangrel, Shad introduced him to David, I forgot what the clan is called, but the
Ventru.
Ventru, the right hand of the prince, the sheriff of the city, the right hand of the prince, David the Ventru, who, after a series of questions and insightful tests, agreed that Michael was permitted to continue his existence, and no blood hunt would be called. No citywide execution of the vampire would be called. After that, we spent some time in the club receiving some strange offers from members of the clans of Set, as well as a few other strange factions. And we ran into a Nosferatu from the Sabbat, who had formerly offered Michael a path to join him. But it seems that both the Sabbat and neutral factions have a greater degree of influence and presence within Cascadia City than had been true in the past. So they seem to be gaining, or at least revealing, their presence. After that, we went to the art gallery, which had some interesting, particularly to Shad, interesting relics and artifacts from ancient Near Eastern cultures that fortuitously coincided with some of the notes he had formerly received. While there, they also met a young artist who was wearing pajama pants, I believe long hair, and acting somewhat erratic, who with them got special access to some of the less public exhibits. After that time, Shad gave Michael his first set of instructions to tail the kid who said he was a student at the campus that Shad works at. Shad was going back to his university library to study the notes and work on his magical enchanted staff, and that's where we left off.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Dude Missile the same question. Can you give at least a synopsis of your memory of your character's last session? If there's anything that Shad missed or that you'd like to add.
So there was some guy. He seemed to, and just for context, if you haven't heard the previous episode, my character doesn't really know he's a changeling. He knows he's weird, and he knows that there's other like supernatural type people that he just refers to as weirdos, but he doesn't know himself that he is a changeling. There was I think a guy. What was he in, a pink suit or something? Do you know what I'm talking about, Shogun?
Yes.
The guy who was there.
He was.
Yeah. So and then there was I guess the sort of hostess of the event also seems to be aware of his nature and sort of seems to be keeping some sort of an eye on him. And then I met the rest of the group. The main thing that happened was at the end I got into a taxi, and then it turned out that I was actually being kidnapped for what seems like some nefarious purpose, basically.
That's correct. And not only that, but the taxi that you were in was actually not a taxi, right? It changed its appearance after you were in the taxi. And there was one final point, which was that Michael, the gangrel, Michael Williams, who was assigned to pursue you by Shad Viano Feroth, for his own reasons, chose not to do so. So, we're now going to enter into the storyline of Lucy Fairbrook, the second daughter of Elizabeth Fairbrook, the proprietor of the Cascadia Art Gallery, and the sister, colloquially speaking, of the Cascadia City Harpy, Sarah Fairbrook, who also happens to run the Pyramid nightclub and is a friend and acquaintance of Shad Viana Feroth. So,
now,
Lucy,
if I could just
go ahead.
If I could just confirm one thing, just so I understand what's going on here. So they're not actually. It's not actually that this mother and her two daughters. They're all vampires, and they're assuming this identity of being a family as like a
That's
sort of
correct.
front.
They're not
Am I getting
actually
that?
blood. They're not actually blood relatives, but in order to maintain an identity coherent with being human beings, they're pretending to be a blood family. In reality, the three of them are not blood family, except that they are both emphasizing Cyrus Elizabeth Fairbrook, the proprietor of the Cascadia Art Gallery, and at this point, the most powerful toreador that the characters are aware of in the city. So, we are going to step backwards a moment in time into the art gallery of Cascadia City. And so the scene which Lucy Fairbrook finds herself in is that she has been invited, along with her sister and many of the other socialites and movers and shakers of the city, to a very high society and deeply archaeological art gallery exposition, which is actually displaying relics collected from the Middle East and the Iraq War, things from Sumeria and Assyria, are on display, ancient artwork, and around you is the scene of high society, people dressed as nines, wearing tuxedos, suits, ballroom dresses, the whole 9 yards. Waitresses and waiters are moving among the crowd, serving wine and other hors d'oeuvres. You are currently attending to your Cyrus, Elizabeth Fairbrook, in her private quarters on the 3rd floor of the art gallery. And currently only the two of you are in her private quarters, which are very sumptuously and opulently decorated with exquisite taste and aesthetic choice, as you would expect, since she demonstrates in all of her actions. She is an extremely beautiful woman with blonde hair, slender, wearing and as always, she radiates a sort of aura of grace and poise and elegance, which you yourself and your sister also inherit. The discipline of presence of which you are aware. Anyways, you have arrived at the art gallery and answered the summons of your Cyrus, who is now looking at you with some seriousness. And she says, "Welcome, my daughter. How are you this evening?"
So Lucy, walking in slowly, she's clutching a purse in her hand. You can tell she's fidgeting with it, but she's trying to hide her body language. And she'll make eye contact with Elizabeth and smile politely. "I'm doing well. How are you doing?"
He says, "It is an exquisite night and a good event, and the night is young. The current time is approximately midnight in Cascadia City." He says, "I've called you here for a special reason this evening. Of course, we wanted your presence at the event. However, we have a few unusual guests attending, and it would be appropriate if a designate from our family bloodline follows them and perhaps introduces yourself. Your sister, Sarah, is already well familiar with Shad Viana Feroth, a Tremere scholar and Ancile from Cascadia University. He is attending tonight with two rather unusual guests. One, and this is to be kept strictly between you and I in the utmost confidence, is a gangrel recently hired by Cogliostro Claw without the permission of the Prince of Cascadia City. As I'm sure you can understand, this is a major scandal, and the Prince has made it a top priority to prevent it from escalating. We believe that you and your skills can play an important role in preventing what could otherwise easily turn into a bloodbath. We have succeeded in convincing Cagliostro and his daughter, Litu Levain, to turn over their new scion, Michael Williams, to the tutelage of the Tremere scholar and ancile Shad Pianaferov, to confirm whether or not he can be trusted to follow the rules and dictates of the masquerade. Sarah, as you understand, has been in the sanctuary. You have a little more freedom of action. So I would like you to enjoy the evening, have a drink, take in the art, but also keep a close eye on 3 unusual guests. In addition to the 2 kindred I mentioned, we have an even more unusual attendant tonight, a young artist who you can easily identify is not matching our strict dress code. He's wearing pajama pants for some strange reason. But I would like you to make contact with these individuals, or at least follow them, and make sure that they aren't planning any double crosses or tricks, and make sure that everything that Shad has promised me, he follows through on. Do you think you can handle this, my daughter?
Of course I can. And you say unusual, as in they're easy to catch with my eye, or do we know what they're wearing tonight so that I can take note of that?
She says, you won't need to guess, although with your senses, I have no doubt that you could easily identify them without the aid of these pictures. Nevertheless, she reaches into her purse and pulls out a few documents and spreads them out on her alabaster desk in front of her white stone desk. And there are photographs of 3 individuals. One of them is a young man about 18 years of age in appearance with white blonde hair. The second is a unusual looking man wearing pajama pants and looking somewhat scruffy and underdressed. And the third is a man with tattoos on his chest and his neck, displaying a checkerboard and a 2-headed eagle, who has medium-length dirty blonde hair. And he says, these are your 3 targets. Now, it's up to you whether you make contact or shadow them from a distance, but I need independent confirmation that they're following our orders. As you know, even our most loyal subjects have been known to betray us, and the great game proceeds apace. Trust no one, my daughter. Remember that. Trust no one.
Of course, Mother. Of course.
Says, if you understand your orders and you have no further questions, I encourage you to go out and enjoy the event. She hands you a glass of red liquid, which your extremely strong senses can easily identify as human blood or vitae, but which to an ordinary person would simply appear as red wine. She says, and be sure to take in the various archaeological and artistic displays. They hold a deep meaning. Perhaps your insightful gaze can deduce something that I have missed, or that Shad may be interested in. Anyways, I have other attendances to rendezvous with. Enjoy your evening and be safe, my daughter, she says, and gestures for you to leave.
She raises her glass to her mother and turns on her heel and walks out the door towards the main level where this is all occurring on.
Okay. So you walk out of the 3rd floor office and private residence of your Cyrus Elizabeth Fairbrook, and you notice that there are 2 lower levels. On the 2nd level is a party where younger people are dancing to electronic music, and you recognize that your own sister, Sarah Fairbrook, is currently playing a set as the DJ. And you notice that the 2 individuals, or rather the 3 individuals that you were assigned to identify, you can easily see in the crowd below you. There's a security guard off to the side guarding a black curtained exit, and a group of people dancing on the dance floor. And you see the 3 individuals that you were just shown pictures of sort of moving through the crowd towards the security guard, who is a large muscular man wearing a tight black shirt that simply says event staff. Roll a perception. I'm going to ask you to roll a perception check, Estremia.
Okay.
So whatever your stat is that corresponds to perception. You can roll that many dice. However, I believe with Auspex, you can actually automatically make one success for each point of Auspex. I'm not mistaken.
Dope. Is there a dice roll channel?
Yeah, right under the World of Darkness channel, we should have a World of Darkness rolls channel.
Oh,
You see that?
okay, cool. Yeah. And you said what specific skill?
So I
set?
want you to roll a perception check, or if you have alertness, you could roll that. And if you, again, I believe the mechanic is if you spend a blood point to use your Auspex, you could make one automatic perception success for each point of Auspex by spending 1 point of blood.
Dope. I'm just trying to find where it says perception on here, and I am.
Does it even
What?
say perception, Chad, or were we using wits as a standard?
We were using wits plus awareness. So there's a mental attribute called wits, and then there's a mental skill called awareness. So those two things together is your total dice pool for
Dope,
perception
dope, dope.
checks.
Oh, I have 5 in awareness and 2 in wit. Okay.
It's a
Okay,
total
so because you
dice
have-
pool of 7,
You know what?
or
Because you
1 point of willpower to
have such a
automatically succeed. Sorry.
I just win.
You know, because of your extremely high stats in both awareness and Auspex, you automatically succeed in this. There's no way you can fail. So not only do you see Chad, Michael Williams, and I'm sorry, please remind me of the name of your character, Dude Missile.
His name is Sid Rogers.
All right, so you see below you clearly Shad, Yano, Feroth, Sid Rogers, and Michael Williams in the crowd moving towards the security. You also, because of your Auspex ability, are clearly able to see the distinctive telltale aura of kindred. They're essentially lacking the souls that living human beings have, and so they're essentially have a negative aura. So you can easily tell that both Michael Williams and Chad are kindred, like yourself, vampires. However, you see a very strange light pink and purple aura around the third individual, the one wearing pajama pants, named Sid Rogers. He has a very strange pink aura, and out of all the people dancing in the crowd, there's nobody else who has an aura like this. In fact, you can't remember seeing an aura precisely like this before. Not only that, for a moment you get an impression, a mental impression, that this individual has bunny ears and a bunny tail. You don't know what this means, and after a moment the impression fades, but you're left with this visual image of this character who has the pink aura also having these animalistic features similar to a rabbit. You're not sure what any of this means. You also, however, notice a third or a fourth individual who you were not told to look for, who automatically stands out because he's wearing a pink leisure suit with no shirt underneath. So he's exposing like six-pack abs. He's got like brown skin, black hair. Looks like maybe sort of Middle Eastern. But you also notice that he has the distinctive aura of a kindred. But there's something also strange about his aura, where he seems to have a human aura around him, but you can see that it's false. It's not a real. He's not a real human. He's a kindred pretending somehow to be a human. And you're also able to perceive that that individual is following and watching the same individuals that you've been sent to follow. All of this is made apparent to you due to your hypersense aspect.
Sheesh. Alright. I'm just gonna take a sip of my wine and watch where they're going as I can see that they are making their way towards the exit. I'm gonna slowly, Lucy will slowly walk towards the security guard at the exit. Not getting close enough that it's suspicious. She's just there to intervene if need be, if she's going to redirect, but she hasn't decided yet whether she's going to follow them out if they do or stop them.
So you make your way gracefully through the crowd of dancing people, and you notice that the three individuals that you're following are being led through a black carpeted or a black barrier. It's not an exit, however. It's actually a restricted VIP area, which you're aware of because you know the layout of this art gallery. And so the three of them have been let through into this private VIP viewing area. And after the security guard lets the three of them in, he looks at you and kind of nods knowingly. He recognizes you as Lucy Fairbrook, and therefore one of his employers, essentially. And he kind of smiles knowingly at you as the three of them go behind the curtain into the restricted area.
She smiles back at him, making her way closer as she's going to follow through, and knowingly she'll be able to cross over because she's his employer.
Okay. So you stand in the shadows behind the black curtain beside the security guard. You notice the three individuals go into the private area. And you notice that in the private area there is a large statue. And the statue shows a heroic-looking individual impaling a serpent on a lance. And then around the private viewing area are various other statues, as well as tablets and frescoes made of stone and carvings. You see the 18-year-old looking individual with white hair, Shad, inspecting the various installations. At the same time as you see Sid Rogers, the strange person with the pink aura, showing some images on his phone to a woman who's standing there. And Michael Williams is just sort of standing there passively watching everything go down. The security guard makes a gesture to you, kind of indicating that you should wait where you are and not reveal your presence.
She kind of tilts her head a little bit at him, knowing she could go into the room, but she decides to wait back to see what else is going to occur. It's an odd group of people she's been asked to follow.
So the security guard puts his hands to his ear, right? He's receiving some kind of auditory message. And then he says to you, keep a close eye on these three. You're not the only one tailing them tonight. Don't let them out of your sight.
All right, thank you. She pats him on the shoulder and continues into the room, going close to that statue of the person being impaled and gazing at it as if she's just observing fine art.
Okay. So you enter into the room at the same time as the individuals in the room, Shad, Michael, and Sid, are ushered out by another security guard as though he is trying to prevent them from seeing you, essentially. And so they are now headed towards the exit of the art gallery. If you want, you can inspect or do whatever you want in this area, but they are now exiting as you enter.
I'm going to do a quick sweep of the room with my gaze to notice if anything catches my eye, because I'm very perceptive. Miss anything?
So again, you don't need to roll. You can automatically detect that there's a strange aura around the statue, which shows the heroic-looking man impaling the serpent on a lance. There is a dark aura, like a black, pitch black, malevolent aura around this. And you can also see in the inscription at the bottom of the statue that the letters, which are in some kind of cuneiform, which you can't understand, are like glowing with like a red malevolent light. And so it's almost like this black statue has this black aura around it, and there's this like malevolent red light kind of glowing out of the letters and the inscription underneath it. You also sense strange presences in some of the paintings on the walls, almost as though they are looking back at you as you look at them. It's almost like they're somehow conscious in some way that you can't explain.
It's awful. And she even thinks that to herself as she looks at the painting, her gaze looking back at the text that seems to be glowing red, at least within her mind's eye. She
Do
takes
you have any points? Sorry, go ahead.
She takes a step back from the statue, kind of feeling unnerved by it, and making her way towards the other door. But do I have what?
Do you have any points in occult or investigation or any knowledges that are relevant?
No, unfortunately, no.
Okay.
Let's look. No occult.
No languages, no investigation.
I have insight, intimidation, persuasion.
You could roll insight.
Okay.
So, however many points of insight you have, roll those as d10s. I'm not sure if you've used the rolling system yet. You just do /roll, and then you put d10, and then you put a number of dice, which is going to be equal to your dice pool, which is your insight.
You can roll a max of 5 dice in a single command, so if you have to roll more than that, you're going to have to do multiple commands.
Okay, so I rolled a 9 and an 8.
Okay, so those are successes. So as you stand and you look at the statue, you remember something that your Cyrus Elizabeth Fairbrook taught you long ago about your mythological primogenitor of all the vampires named Cain. And you've only seen Cain depicted in drawings and carvings, but nevertheless, you can recognize that this statue is a statue of Cain, who, according to kindred mythology, is the original vampire. However, your Cyrus Elizabeth is quite skeptical of vampire religion and vampire lore, which she considers to be archaic and outdated myths of long-lost desert primitives. But nevertheless, your history, and so you recognize that this is actually a statue of. Now, as this insight occurs to you, you realize that the 3 individuals that you have been sent to tail are now exiting the room, and so it's up to you.
I follow them. Yeah, I'm going
Right.
after them.
Okay. Now, do you have any points in stealth or?
Let's see. I don't think so. I'm looking for stealth.
It's under
Oh,
physical
no.
and
I
skills.
see it. No, but I have 3 in survival. My charm makes up for the lack of stealthiness if I get caught. Oh. He's gone.
Yeah, he was cutting out there for a second. I think he'll be back though.
Let's let chaos ensue. Free form. Casting Shogun. You still can't hear you. No, nothing from you.
Sorry, I'm back.
There we go.
So you have no points in stealth. So in order to remain as inconspicuous as possible, just roll your dexterity. So you'll have a difficulty of 7 to succeed, and just roll your dexterity to try and be as stealthy as you can be in following them without being obvious about it.
Dope. Am I doing the same thing with the D10?
Yeah, it's always a d10 in this game. So it's just a matter of how many d10s you roll, and that's called your dice pool. And the difficulty, I'll tell you, or it's usually somewhere between 7 and 9 or 10, depending on how hard the thing you're trying to do is.
Okay. Wait, hold on. Roll D. Whoa. Struck me. / roll. I'm gonna have D10 and then count 2. Okay, I rolled a 9 and a 6 because I have 2 in dexterity.
Okay. So if you copy your dice roll, you won't have to re-enter it every time. So that's something to consider, is just copy it and then you'll be able to reuse it and just change it as you need. So you rolled a 9 and a 6, so that's a success. So you follow the 3 individuals as they exit the art gallery out the back exit. Well, actually, they take a back roundabout way out the front exit through the VIP passageway that they're on. And as you are exiting the art gallery into the cool night of Cascadia, there's some people around smoking cigarettes and chatting. You see Shad Viano-Feroth and Sid Rogers heading towards the street, with Michael Williams following behind them. You also notice the man in the pink suit, right? The pink suit passes and gets into a car. It's a black car, luxury black car, very expensive looking sedan style car, and he drives around the corner. Meanwhile, you see Shad Vienna Feroth and his two compatriots having a conversation. They seem to reach some kind of decision, and Shad Vienna Feroth starts walking away down the sidewalk in the direction of Cascadia University. Michael Williams is standing and watching, just observing, and you see Sid Rogers go to the street and kind of wave down a cab, and you see a cab driving up to pick him up. Now, I'm going to get you to roll a perception check, which again, all your perception stats are so high that you essentially automatically succeeded all of these, I believe. So, therefore, I'll simply tell you that you are able to perceive that the cab that is driving up is not actually a cab. It's actually the same black sedan that you saw the man in the pink suit get into, but you're also able to see with your normal vision that it appears like a yellow cab, like an ordinary taxi. But at the same time, you can see beneath that it's actually just the same black sedan with some kind of strange glamour or illusion over it. Nevertheless, it pulls to a stop, and you see Sid Rogers, the man with the pink aura and the strange rabbit-like features, gets into the back seat of the false cab, which then begins to drive away. You see Michael Williams turn and look in the direction of the departing cab. However, he makes no move to follow it or to pursue it.
For fuck's sake, she says out loud to herself, knowing that this kid just got abducted. She's gonna approach Michael, who is now character you have to play. Sorry, Shogun.
Right.
And with a smile on her face, she's gonna be like, "Hey, was that your friend that just got into that car?"
I'm going to ask you to roll charisma,
Yeah.
or you can, I think charisma is your only statistic. You could also roll manipulation, whichever is higher.
Cool. Okay. I'll do manipulation. 10. Oh, I'm struggling with this fucking dice thing. I knew
It's
you
not
said to
too
copy
bad
and
once you get used to it. Yeah, you just copy and
it's
paste
just
it.
like it's the count thing. So on the desktop, it's a little bit different because it prompts you to select certain things now with bots. Okay, I rolled a 10 and a 3. Ignore that.
Okay, so a 10 is a critical success,
Okay.
and the difficulty of manipulating Michael Williams is low, as we've seen from his past actions. So you approach him, and the combination of your class and elegance and social etiquette makes an immediate positive impression on him. And he smiles at you and seems to be appreciating that you're paying attention to him. After you ask if that was his friend, he says, "No, actually, I only met him tonight. I don't know him."
Oh. Okay. I just saw you guys together and I assumed that you guys are friends. Interesting. What did you think of him when you met him?
He says he seemed to not have gotten the notice about the dress code. Other than that, he seemed rather strange, like an eccentric person, but I didn't really get to know him. So,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I noticed that about his attire as well. It was kind of off-putting, but, maybe he didn't get the memo.
Okay. So, as we reach this point in the story, Shad dropped out. I'm sure he'll come back. I'm going to switch the character perspective to Sid Rogers. So, Sid, you just got into this cab, right? And you realized once you got in, the man turned around and you recognized him as the individual with the pink suit, and also he has clearly visible vampire fangs extended. So you're in no doubt about his identity as a kindred. And also, once you got into the cab, the glamour or illusion making it look like a cab was dispelled. And so you are now aware that you are actually in a luxury black sedan. And I believe that you already tried to open the doors and know that they are locked from the inside. So the man looks back at you and smiles with a predatory grin and says, "Hold on, kid. I have someone to introduce you to. Sit still and don't make any noise, and you might get through this okay."
Okay, well, I'm going to do what he says. I'm going to, not rock the boat here. I'll just sit. I mean, like, what's in the car? What's in
back
the
of the car, right? The whole car is upholstered with like luxury black leather. There is really nothing in the back seat of the car. In the front seat of the car, you have the driver. There's nobody in his passenger seat. And essentially, you see nothing in the car. It's just a nice, clean, pristine, luxury black sedan. Also, the man showed you that by lifting aside his pink, sports coat, he showed you that he has a large pistol tucked into his belt.
Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna not rock the boat here. I was thinking, 'cause I have a really high craft skill, so I was thinking about doing like some MacGyver shit where I, make a lockpick out of like a napkin and some string, but I'm not gonna risk that. So
Unfortunately, there are no random pieces of anything that you can use to craft anything at this point. So intimidated,
right, okay.
Or at least being cautious, you simply remain passive as the man drives you. He takes many turns and starts driving you into a darker and more dangerous part of the city towards the north end of the city. You know the city well enough to know that he is heading north. And the north end is notorious for being the most dangerous part of the city where most murders and disappearances take place. And there are many, many dark rumors about the north end of the city. It's also where many of the street gangs operate. And by the graffiti and the tags on the walls, you can see that you are headed into that region of the city. Now I'm going to jump back to Estremia because potentially, right, you could take an action at this point or do something while this is happening.
Yeah. Do I want to rescue him?
So, just for an example, I'm not usually going to do this and give like hints or tips, right? But because you have a finances before, it's very likely that you have either a car of your own, right, that you arrived in, or that you could very easily get someone to drive you in their car, someone who works for your mother, a chauffeur, for example, or even simply call your own cab, right? You have the resources to do any of those things.
Nope. She's got a bike, a motorcycle. She's gonna get on. It's just parked around the corner, so she makes her way there. Her thoughts running a little rampant because of the scenario, the fact that this character she's supposed to be following wasn't aware of the situation he was getting himself into. So she throws her helmet on, hops on the bike, and trails after this car in a space that isn't too obvious, but she's close enough that she's aware of where they're going.
Okay, cool. And I'm just going to ask all the players to just speak a little bit louder than usual.
Okay.
And then say it a bit louder than usual if you can. So do you have any points in the skill of drive?
Drive? No.
Yeah.
None.
No.
What
Okay.
the hell?
That's okay. That doesn't
Chad!
mean you can't. Doesn't mean you can't drive. You're not a skilled driver in particular. Also, can you please describe your motorcycle?
It's, oh god, I don't know the exact model. It's not a cruiser, it's not a bullet bike, it's that like in between.
Like an Indian.
Yeah. Let's see. Here, I'll just, yeah, Honda Rebel. Let's go. That'll be it. Easy.
So it's a Honda Rebel. What color is it?
Black.
All right, so you get on your black Honda Rebel motorcycle and you kick it into gear and you begin following the departing black sedan, which you can clearly see through the illusion that's been placed over it. So you are going to need to roll dexterity to attempt to keep up with this individual and not lose him, because he is actually driving evasively and trying to lose any possible pursuers. So you can roll your dexterity with a difficulty of 8 to keep up.
Also available is spending a point of willpower to automatically succeed, or using blood points to increase your physical attributes, including dexterity, FYI.
That's right. So you can use your blood points as a vampire almost as for all these different purposes, right? So your blood is very powerful, and there's very few things that a vampire can't do if you're willing to spend blood points. So you could raise your dexterity all the way up to 5 and then be superhumanly dexterous for a period of time just by spending the blood points, right? Or you could, like you said, you can roll will to automatically succeed, but does that apply to ability rolls, or is that more for mental resistance and so forth?
That's a good point. I think we have been doing it any roll, but I don't know what the rule says.
I think I'm going to make the decision that the automatic pass with willpower only applies to willpower related things, like resisting domination or resisting manipulation. Because it doesn't really make sense that you would just automatically succeed at anything.
Okay, so if I have where is the blood points as far as where they are on the sheet? Are there any on the sheet?
They are not on the sheet. Your blood pool is based on your generation.
Okay,
and for you, the max. What's your generation?
I'm a 11th generation. Yeah.
You're an 11th, so that means your max blood pool is max blood pool is 12.
Huh.
So because of your privileged position and the fact that you were just drinking blood and so forth, you can assume that your blood pool begins full, because you have a herd of people available that you can feed from as a result of your mentor. So you can begin with a full blood pool if you wish to spend any of it.
I'm just gonna give this a go. I rolled a 5 and a 10 for dexterity.
Okay, so 10 is a critical success. So you're pursuing this black sedan, and you notice it's making a lot of unnecessary turns and going down back alleys, but you manage to tail it and not lose it. And you notice that it is now leading you into the northern part of the city, the north end, which is the Toreador is dangerous for 2 reasons. One, because it is the territory of the Bruja clan, which are part of the Camarilla, but are known for their rebellious and anarchistic nature and are only nominally loyal to the Camarilla. But you also know, because of your relationship with the Harpy, Sarah Fairbrook, your sister, that there has been confirmed rumors of Sabbat activity, as well as unknown independent clan activity taking place in the north end. It's somewhat of a lawless area, where the authority of the prince, although still present, is not as powerful as in the rest of the city. So in other words, you're aware that you are now entering dangerous territory, and you are leaving your own domain, the luxury shopping and nightlife district called Corridon, and entering the domain of other vampires, which means, as you know, because of your etiquette, you're bound to the laws of etiquette and domain if you actually run into any of them. But you also know that there's rumors of violent Sabbat activity in this place, which, as you know, are the more evil faction of Kindred who do not obey the laws of the Masquerade.
No.
But you are able to tail this vehicle as it goes to the north end. Now, I want to jump to Shad for a little while, just so everybody gets to play. And because Shad is walking currently down the sidewalks towards his domain, which is the University of Cascadia, headed towards his pantry house and his library. Shad, you are walking down this dark alley, and I guess I'll just have you roll a perception check as well, just to start things out.
Okay, one moment. 7962.
7962.
Yes.
All right, so you get one success with your 9, and the second success with the 6 because there's no intent being made to hide this. So you notice, you notice a few things. One, you notice that Michael. You turn around, and look back, and you notice that Michael is just sort of standing there, looking around, and not following the person, Sid Rogers, that you had told him to. Furthermore, you notice a beautiful girl with red hair get onto a black motorcycle and take off in pursuit of Sid Rogers and the cab that he just departed in. So you notice that a girl with red hair on a motorcycle is following Sid Rogers and his yellow taxi cab that he just got into.
Take a deep sigh and think about the necessity of me getting back to the university to complete my talisman staff, which I cannot miss a single night of for an entire month, or I have to start over and turn around to Michael and say, excuse me, Michael, I know you just got approval from David to be a free agent, but this path requires some level of responsibility, and why aren't you following that cab?
He says, I've had enough of following you around through art galleries and nightclubs. I need to return to Litu. She's the one who taught me how to speak the ways of the animals and how to manifest the gifts of my blood. I've spent enough time being your lapdog. I'm going back to my Cyrus. And he says that, and he simply turns around and kind of walks off into the distance, like disdainfully. And you remember, it occurs to you that Michael has drinking 3 times the blood of his Cyrus Litu. Has drunk 3 times of the blood of his Cyrus Litu. And so you wonder to what extent he's simply overwhelmed by his soul bond to her. But regardless, he has disobeyed your direct instructions.
Dad pushes 2 fingers into his furrowed brow to physically remove the clenched eyebrow. Takes a deep breath. What can I see in terms of the cars and the motorcycle? Are they totally out of sight by this point, or?
So at this point, they're out of sight only for like a second, but you did see which street, and that they turned down and which direction they were going.
Okay. And given that the party is rapidly letting out, I imagine there's a number of cars and things like that up in front of the entrance, and I'm gonna try to find one that looks like an Uber.
Okay. So there is actually a number of Ubers and cabs waiting out front because there is a lot of people leaving, and so they know that there's going to be a lot of fares. So you easily find an Uber with a Middle Eastern driver who pulls up in front of you and opens the passenger side door for you, or the back door, rather.
So I'm just gonna jump in and I'm gonna say, listen, follow my instructions and I will give you $1,000. Forget your previous fare and take a left at that road now.
The man looks at you with astonishment in his eyes, but immediately hits the gas and begins driving in the direction that you instruct him to drive. Now,
okay, and I give him a brief description of the motorcycle and the car, and if and when we do find them, to tail them and follow them wherever they go.
All right, so in this case, I'm going to ask you to roll a D100, and we're going to say anything over a 60, your driver is able to keep up.
20.
We won't usually use D100s. So you rolled a 20?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so your driver turns around the corner and drives quickly in the direction that you indicated. And again, you're just able to see the woman with the red hair and the motorcycle disappear around another corner. You can clearly tell that they're headed north towards the northern part of the city, but unfortunately, your driver has lost them at this point.
Thinking about the fact that we got this. Did we get this from? This isn't like a mission from David. This is just some.
Your only mission. Your mission from David was to contact Michael and deduce whether or not he could be trusted to be a member of the Masquerade. That was the mission you were given. You were also given the mission to deliver a sealed letter to Elizabeth Fairbrook, which you have already done.
Okay. So I'm going to give up. I'm going to say, look, I've got more important things to do. I've got these notes from the museum. These are my internal dialogue. I've got notes from the museum to pour through to cross-reference with the previous text that I got, plus I need to work on my staff. So I just tell the driver, you know what, take me back to the university.
Okay. So
when we get there, I'm going to invite him up.
You invite the Uber driver up to the university library?
Yeah, to my office there.
Okay, I guess roll manipulation or charisma.
Okay. Not respond. A little too quick. A 2. I failed.
All right, so when you invite the man up, he looks at you kind of with puzzlement and concern and kind of just shakes his head in the negative and asks you about the $1,000 that you promised him.
Yeah, it's upstairs. I have to go get it. But
he looks
fine.
at you. He looks at you with puzzlement and he says, "You have $1,000 upstairs?"
Yes.
And you're going to give it to me.
Yes.
The man looks at you with deep suspicion and concern in his eyes, but after a moment he shrugs and agrees to follow you.
Okay, well, I lead him up to my office and don't share anything about my background. And when I get him in there, I'm going to attempt a force feeding and drain all of his blood.
So how are you going to go about doing that?
As I bring him into the room, I lock the door behind me, and I quickly get some rope that I have laying about, and just give him a bear hug and start tying him up.
So you're going to try and physically tie him up by force?
Yes, and I'll spend. I need to double check what the system is, but I'll spend a blood point or 2 to boost my strength super high. Let me look at the interface real quick.
But I believe that for each blood point spent, you can raise an attribute by 1 automatically. And if you have a lower generation, you may be able to raise it by more than 1 per blood point.
Yeah, it is more than 1. World of Darkness. Max trait rating, blood points per turn. So I can spend... Oh yeah, this is what it is. You're right, it's 1. But at 8th, I can spend 3 per turn. So I'll just do that. I'll spend 3 blood points to raise my strength to 5.
Okay, so you're going to... Do you have any points in Brawl or any other martial arts type skill?
2 in Brawl and 5 in Athletics.
2 in Brawl and 5 in Athletics. So roll a dice pool of 7 for your strength plus your Brawl. And that's going to be a contested roll against a man who we're going to say has a strength of 3. He's a little stronger than an ordinary person. So he is going to roll 3, you're going to roll yours, and whoever gets more successes will win. So he rolled 1, 2, and 8, which is 1 success and 1 critical failure. So
And
as
I
long as
rolled
you roll.
2 critical successes and 1, 2, 3, 4 successes in addition to that.
Okay, so he struggles fiercely against you, but because of your superhuman strength, you're easily able to subdue him and tie him up. However, he is screaming bloody murder the whole time that this is happening. He's screaming for his life. However, you have successfully tied him up, and he's now writhing around on the ground and screaming.
Your screaming won't help you here. This is our Chantry house. Something that you will not live long enough to understand. And I just go to feeding and I drain 10 points of blood from him.
So you sink your fangs into his neck and you begin feeding, and there's an overwhelming rush of euphoria and ecstasy as you feed on human blood. You drain him of all of his blood, and his screams and his thrashings grow quieter and weaker as the life leaves him, and you feel empowered and full of vitality and euphoria as you absorb the kind's blood. However, you must now roll a willpower roll, and if you fail that roll, you will lose 1 point of humanity. In fact, you will automatically lose 1 point of humanity unless you expend a point of willpower.
I'll do that.
So, as the bestial nature of your feeding struggles with what remains of your humanity, you exert your willpower honed over hundreds of years of undeath, and you remind yourself that although you are a predator, you must not become a beast. You are now left with a desanguinated dead body on the floor of your office, and there is a knock upon your door.
I call out, wiping the blood from my face. Who is it?
It's Oliver. The same. Now, I may be getting the name wrong. I forget. But if you remember, it's your Tremere Chantry House friend. We're going to say his name is Oliver. The same man who is a small man with round glasses and a tie. And he's just knocking on the door and he says, "Is everything all right, Chad?"
Oh, fine. Thank you, Oliver. I was just so frustrated with something I'm working on, but now is really not a great time, I'm saying, without opening the door. I just need a few more hours to finish this work and would really appreciate a little bit of quiet time. We'll catch up on those notes another time.
He nods and bows slightly and disappears back into his own office across the hall of the Chantry House, leaving you to your devices.
I'm thinking, what can I do to, like, eradicate this body? Is there a way to do that within the Chantry House? Like, is there like a method for this?
So you have in the Chantry House a artifacts room, which contains some obscure items and objects, including some coffins and sarcophagi, and sometimes, if necessary, you can deposit a body in one of those coffins, and it will be disposed of by your ghouls, not your personal ghouls, but the ghouls who work for the Premier Chantry House. So yes, you can dispose of the body.
After I'm sure Oliver is back in his room, I'm going to very silently bring the body down to that coffin and search the car to make sure there's no like recording devices in there that could have picked me up, cover my tracks in any way that I can. Also,
so
take
you're
his,
looking for recording devices in this room?
back in the vehicle, in the Uber vehicle, and then his GPS phone. I just like take it and move it to a different part of the campus.
Wait, are you talking about the car that belonged to the Uber driver?
Uber driver, yeah.
Okay, so you dispose of the body, and then you go to the Uber driver's car and you dispose of his phone?
Yeah, so I take any GPS that he might have, like any recording devices that he may have as an Uber driver, any GPS tracking that he may have, like on his vehicle or on his phone, and let me just take all of that stuff. Maybe I need to roll to find it and drive it to like the freshman dorms, and then I'll just machine blitz all of it.
And then you'll what?
Machine blitz. It's a ritual. I have to make any machine more advanced than a rope and pulley go haywire.
Okay, so you take off the dashboard camera and the GPS device and the cell phone. You drive to the freshman dorms and you carry out your ritual of haywire. Do you have to roll or do anything for that? I can't remember.
No, I just actually looked it up. It's instantaneous, just requires one piece of metal, and it lasts for as long as I concentrate, but it can be used to destroy electric devices.
All right. So in the night, it's now about 2 a.m. You focus your magical abilities and you carry out the occult ritual of electronic disruption, and you see clearly that the devices are short-circuiting, breaking, smoking, and are now completely not operating anymore.
All right, I walk back to the chantry house, take a deep breath upon sitting in my chair with my talisman, which is about a 4-foot long piece of wood that I found in the Gangrel territory a few nights before, and set about on week 2 of my talisman creation, carving runes that are archaic and ancient languages and symbols, some compacted, efficiently purposed to put all my magical knowledge on this one item written out over the course of the next month. And I set to work doing that. So the roll that I need to make for that is, I just had it pulled up. Intelligence plus occult, difficulty 8. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in intelligence and 4 in occult. Uh-oh. 2 critical failures. 1 critical success. And no other... So I didn't succeed once here, did I? 2 critical failures and 1 critical success. So 2 successes from the critical and 2 failures.
So does that just mean that you fail to make progress? Or does that mean that you have ruined your talisman?
The ritual requires 6 hours per night for 1 complete cycle of the moon, beginning and ending on the new moon. Over this time, the vampire carefully prepares her talisman. The player spends 1 blood point per night and makes an extended roll, 1 roll per week. If a night's work is missed, or if the 4 rolls do not accumulate to 20 net successes, the talisman is ruined. So no, it doesn't necessarily mean that. And I need to find my notes, but I'm pretty sure it was 6 from the first roll that I did. So what that means is I just need to, in my next 2 rolls, I need to get in another 18 or something, another 14.
So you're keeping track of that. So you spend the night in frustrating and non-productive attempt to continue your talisman creation, but perhaps because of distraction from the night's events, you are unable to focus sufficiently to make any progress on your occult work, which nevertheless take you the remainder of the night. So I'm going to jump back to Lady Astramia, aka Lucy Fairbrooks' character. You are currently following on your black motorcycle a black sedan, pursuing Sid Rogers and the man in the pink sports coat who has abducted him. He's leading you deeper into the dark and crime-infested north end of the city. And you notice the signs of, derelict people who are still, going through dumpsters or using drugs in the open air. You see people with needles and people smoking meth pipes. And you also notice that a lot of people are watching you. A lot of the street people and the homeless people are looking at you with suspicious gazes. And you notice that they're paying a lot of attention to you as you follow the black sedan. The black sedan eventually pulls up in front of what looks like a trap house of sorts, kind of like a derelict house. It has some black graffiti with an anarchist sign scrawled on the front of it. And there are 3 or 4 men wearing leather jackets who look like sort of a rough crowd of people who are sitting around in the front on the deck. They have beers, they're smoking cigarettes, and they're looking at the black sedan that is pulled up. You're far enough back that they have not yet noticed you. There's a garage in front of this building which opens, and the car pulls inside and the garage door closes. And you lose sight of it, but you are now in front of this house, and you notice that the street number is 739, visible on the front of the house.
She shuts the engine off on her bike and rolls it to a spot that is not noticeable, maybe tucking it near or between some buildings. Pulling the helmet off and setting it on the seat, she walks towards the building, but wanting to take a look around it before possibly entering it, seeing if she can observe any other information. So walking.
So as you approach the building, you notice that all the windows are blacked out. They all have like blackout blinds. There are a total of 3 men out front, right? All of them are wearing matching sort of leather jackets that appear to be sort of biker gang patches. Although you can't see, close enough from where you are to make out the details. They have their backs turned to you, so you can't see the back of their jackets. You notice that there are actually other motorcycles parked beside the house, and the men are also... You're capable of seeing with your Auspex vision that although 2 of them bear the normal auras of human beings, although they're kind of gray and dark, negative and energy auras that they have around them, a third individual appears to have the signs of being a kindred, the absence of the normal human chakra auras that you would see. So you know that at least one of these people is a kindred. He's the largest of the group. He has short, dark hair, and he has facial tattoos, which you recognize as being gang tattoos. They also look up at you as you approach, and 2 of the other 2 who are not vampires begin whistling and kind of catcalling at you.
She smiles at them, raising a hand in greeting and walking closer to them. Taking on more of a ditzy role because it seems to do the trick that she needs to. She greets them by saying, "Hey, what are you guys up to?"
So go ahead and roll either charisma or manipulation in order to try and make a positive first impression on them. Well, you've already made a positive first impression on them, but to try and make further impression on them.
So my phone died right before, right when we switched to Estremia, and then I got back like a minute later. So what's going on here?
The car that had you in it just pulled into a trap house-looking place in the north end, which is a very dangerous part of the city. There is an anarchist symbol spray painted on the front of the building. The man with you in the car pulled into the garage. The garage door closed. There are 3 people in front of the building, one of whom Estremia has identified as a kindred, a vampire. And she is now approaching them, following you, essentially.
Okay, I see. Well, outside of game, thank you, Estremia, for trying to save my ass.
We'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
I rolled a 9 and a 3.
All right, so you roll a success. So the men are obviously kind of excited and happy to suddenly see an attractive woman approaching them out of the night. And they kind of wave you over and say, "Hey, come have a drink with us." And they have a big bottle of vodka that they pull out and a glass and pull up a chair and say, "Come sit down. Sweet cakes, whatever."
Kind of laughs at it. All right. Just one drink. It's getting late. She takes a seat. Still, her eyes are on the door where they took Sid into the garage that they entered. But she focuses her attention on the group of men she's around for now. So what are you guys doing out so late?
They laugh at the question as though it's like a ridiculous question, and they say, "Around here, we wake up at nightfall. Regardless, he puts a glass in front of you. The glass is in the shape of a skull, so it's like a skull-shaped glass. And he pours like a huge amount of vodka, and it fills it all the way to the top, and hands it to you. And then he himself takes a drink, and the other guy is smoking a cigarette. And he goes, "My name, they call me Skid, and this is Dave." And then the man who is the vampire looks at you and just kind of stares at you in a very menacing and hostile way. And they don't say his name, and he doesn't introduce himself.
Nice to meet you guys. I like your style. It sounds charming to a degree, but I do like the daytime. And she makes eye contact with the other vampire, holding his gaze. Not afraid, but just calmly. What about you? You haven't said your name. Who are you?
He says, "You don't need to know my name. I need to know what you're doing here."
Well, that's no fun, is it? She said, throwing back the shot of vodka before placing the glass back down.
Okay. So you actually have to expend a point of blood in order to consume any food or alcohol because your undead metabolism cannot actually do so otherwise. So you can expend 1 point of blood and drink the glass, but just make a note that you did that.
Dope.
So you drink the whole glass, or
yeah. Let's
so you
go.
throw back the whole glass, and Skid and Dave laugh and pound back their glasses as well, and they go, "I like this girl." And the other guy looks at your bike and goes, "That's a cute bike you got there," and he kind of smirks because they both have like Harley Davidson kind of bikes.
Gets the job done. You know, takes me from point A to point B. Definitely.
So what? Skid says, "So what's a pretty thing like you doing in this part of the city at this time of night? You must be looking for trouble."
Not necessarily trouble, but I'm looking for a friend.
As you say that, the man who hasn't spoken yet like narrows his gaze even more, and his eyebrows kind of like furrow, and he says, "Oh yeah? You're looking for a friend? What makes you think you'd find him here?"
It's an interesting story. I saw him get into a car. It looked like a taxi, but it might have been the drinks I've been having. It wasn't a taxi. And I followed it here. And I think he happens to be in that garage over there. And she kind of tilts her head back towards the garage that she saw the vehicle enter.
Skid laughs and says, "A taxi that isn't a taxi? This bitch must be high." And he laughs and gets like a white powder out of his pocket and chops up a line on the table and snorts it. But the man who is looking at you, as well as the other man, Dave, are now like looking at you with real hostility. And Dave stands up and reaches into his belt and pulls out a pistol and points it at you and says, "Now I have some questions to ask." Now we're going to pause here, and we're going to jump to Dude Missile's experience. You there,
Can
dude?
you guys hear me? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm ready.
So as you are pulled into the garage, right, you enter this garage. There's nothing really in the garage except for on the left side of the garage, there's a rack or like a shelf, which is covered in cases, which are all black and all look exactly the same. And then at the end of the garage, opposite the garage door, is a reinforced steel door at the top of 3 stairs. The man in the pink...
Wait. So there's like... Okay, I'm just getting this. So the door... So there's a door in front of me that is a reinforced steel door. So it's going to be really tough to just break through that. And then on the side of me, there's a rack, like a meat rack or a coat rack.
On the left side of the garage is a shelf, essentially, and the entire shelf is full of identical black plastic cases, right? Large black plastic cases. That's on the left side of the garage. The garage door has closed behind you, and in front of you is 3 stairs leading into the house, at the top of which is a reinforced steel door with a small viewport in it. Now, the man who's driven you in here, wearing the pink sports coat with the brown skin, is pointing his pistol at you as well. And he's saying, move, get out of the car. He gets out of the car, he opens your door, he points the gun at your head, and he indicates that you should go to the steel door.
Okay, I do as instructed.
Alright, so you obediently follow, and the steel door opens in front of you. Inside is a bald man, right, wearing a white tuxedo, who has a tattoo of a serpent, like a snake, on his bald head, like coiled around his head. And he smiles at you as you enter in like an intensely predatory and malicious way. And he says, you got him. And as he does that, he kind of takes hold of you and sits you down in a chair, right? A metal chair, steel chair, and he goes to put a set of handcuffs on you and handcuff you to the chair.
Again, I don't resist. I think any amount of resistance right now would just get me shot, and that would be worse than at least seeing what's going to happen here. So, okay. I let him handcuff me.
The room that you were in is completely gray, just unmarked gray cement walls. There's nothing in it but the one steel chair that you're handcuffed to. There is a door leading into another part of the house, also steel, but it's closed and locked. And in front of you now are the two men, the man in the pink sports coat and the man in the white tuxedo with the serpent tattoo on his head. The man with the serpent tattoo on his head reaches into his pocket and pulls out a leather envelope and hands it to the man with the pink coat. Says, well done. He says, the Setites will be pleased. And then he hands that man the money, right? You can see that it's full of like $100 bills. The man smiles, puts it into his sports coat, and exits the room through the steel door on the left, leaving you alone with the bald man with the serpent tattoo as you are handcuffed to the steel chair. And the man smiles.
Wait, I just as he smiles, I just say, I hope you're not going to kill me, because I had a lot of stuff I had to do first.
He says, you're more useful to us alive than dead, at least for the time being. How long that remains the case, we shall see. And he smiles again and intentionally extends his fangs, so you can see his fangs slide out as he smiles in a predatory way. And he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a long, sharp, serrated black dagger. And he just kind of holds it in his hands and twists it around, like he's holding it in both hands, and he's just kind of twisting it and smiling and looking at you. And as he does so, you notice that his eyes are yellow. The color of the eyes, like his irises are yellow, and his pupils, as you're watching, form slits like a serpent. And
yeah, and I say, wait. When I make this observation, I say, you know, the color of yellow is associated emotionally with the emotion of fear, and also fear is associated colloquially with what people call the reptilian brain. So it's interesting that you've got snake eyes that are yellow. I just thought I'd point that out.
The man looks somewhat puzzled and then smiles and says, tell me, child, what do you know of fear?
Wait, he said, what do I know of what?
Fear.
I say to him, what do you mean here? Like this place right now?
No, what? Fear. F-E-A-R.
Oh, fear. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you said here. So if that's what you said, I didn't say that because I'd misheard. No, I say, I don't know. It sucks. It's not great to be afraid of stuff, but you know, makes the experience a little bit more interesting, I suppose. And while I say like it makes the experience a little bit more interesting, I suppose I'm like sort of turn my head and I stare off into the distance as though I'm thinking really hard about what I'm saying.
The man says, my kind have been lords of terror since your kind began hanging rocks together. I have much to teach you of fear. Let us prepare the first lesson. And he smiles and draws the dagger and kind of points it towards you and takes a step towards you. And we'll pause your story there. We'll come back to Estremia, who is currently having a pistol, 6-shot, revolver pistol pointed at her by the vampire after she asked about her friend who she said was in the garage. The two guys, Dave and Skid, are looking kind of like surprised, but they're obviously subordinate to the man who's pointing the gun at you, so they're not doing anything to interfere.
She raises her hands up in surprise, kind of trying to pull on the heartstrings of these other two men to continue an act, but obviously she's not fooling this vampire here, but she could possibly get these men to say something, do something, if she acts correctly. Whoa. Relax. Again, I'm just looking for a friend. I think they hopped into the car of yours. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure why you want them. Can you just talk to me?
The man smiles humorlessly and with cold, emotionless eyes and says, "Do you really think I don't know who you are, Lucy Fairbrook? The whole city knows who you are. You are no longer in Toreador territory. This is Bruges domain, and you have not followed the approved etiquette. You exist here at my pleasure. Why should I allow you onto my territory?"
You're right, she said, lowering her hands. My apologies.
He says, "What is the Camarilla up to? We haven't been disobeying any of your so precious masquerade laws, so why has she sent you here? What concern of yours is this Sid Rogers? He's no kindred."
Honestly, I'm just following orders just like you're doing.
Orders, he says. Whose orders? The prince's or your Cyrus, Elizabeth?
I'm sure you can figure that out.
He says, "The problem you have right now is convincing me quickly that there's some profit in me allowing you to be here. Otherwise, I'm going to have to ask you to leave one way or the other." And he cocks the pistol.
What's your price?
He smiles, says, "You would have to match and exceed the price you've already been paid, but unfortunately that would also be to dishonor a debt that we have already agreed to. So money isn't going to buy you out of this. We know that you're a rich girl, but we value things other than money, like freedom, independence, and our own territory. This is none of your business. This is Bruges business, as far as you're concerned."
Okay, I'm going to do some shit here. I'm gonna probably have to roll for a couple things, but I'm going to attempt to grab the barrel of the gun, push it slightly out of the way from my face, gripping it and pushing it into his face, to hit him with his own weapon, since we are close together. It's close range, and I am going to have to fight these men. And I don't know if I want to fight.
Well, it's up to you.
Spooky. That sounds spooky as hell.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm doing this for you.
The character doesn't even know who my character is. I guess orders are orders, huh?
So if you do want to you could attempt to disarm him and take his gun. You could attempt to do anything you want at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You could also just, it's up to you.
I know. She's not an aggressive character, so it just sucks. I did not give her much physical strength. I kept her pretty balanced in that regard. So I'm not gonna go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying it's not necessarily too late to talk your way out of the situation either.
Yeah, my words. All right, so territory. Okay, what are you looking for as far as territory goes? She's trying to continue the conversation. Buy some time.
He says, "As you may have heard, we're running into problems with the Sabbat in the North End. The warriors have been intruding onto our territory. If you could promise us the assistance, or at least the non-interference of your Toreador socialites and hedonites, and give us autonomy to do what needs to be done in our own territory, then maybe we can make a deal. Can you promise me that?
She pauses for a moment, sort of the narrative running in her mind, knowing that it's not necessarily her place to make this call, but it is a conversation that can eventually be had with Elizabeth. In her head, she's thinking, I better not make a fucking promise that I can't keep. I promise, she says to him, giving him a smile.
The man looks at you for a long, scrutinizing moment, and then lowers his pistol, sheaths it in his holster, and extends his right hand to you and says, I don't know how it is with the Toreador, but when a Bruja makes an agreement, his word is his bond. If you renege out of this, I promise you, there will be blood. I don't care how powerful your Cyrus is. We have weapons and ways of our own, and trust me, you don't want to be on the wrong side of our clan. He puts his hands out and offers it to you to shake.
She has a sort of sinking feeling in her gut. The music. And she reaches out and shakes his hand.
The man smiles, and for the first time you see some emotion in his eyes, but you can't quite read it. It's a mixture of amusement and some kind of contempt or irony, almost sarcasm, and he sort of smirks and says, well, maybe you Toreador aren't all as airheaded as they say. One more thing, though. I'm also going to need $50,000 cash.
Oh, we should have mentioned that before the handshake. It's a little too late for that, huh?
He says, so, you can't meet our price?
Sounds like you're not actually good at making deals. But I can abide. Make sure that you say what you want completely before you make a deal.
The man kind of snarls and says, don't lecture me on etiquette in my own territory, you impudent whelp. And then he says, nevertheless, if you can meet our price, we can make a deal. However, I'm going to need to discuss it with my ally in the other room, he says. And then he mentions the David skid. He says, keep an eye on her. Don't let her go anywhere. And he disappears inside of the house through the steel door. Well, through the front door, actually. So we'll jump back now to Dude Missile's character. So Dude Missile, you are handcuffed to a steel chair, and this short, bald, serpent-like person is approaching you with a black dagger that is serrated and very ominous looking. And he's about a foot in front of you with a smile on his face, holding the dagger, when suddenly the door beside you opens, and in comes a large man wearing a leather jacket with a motorcycle gang patch on the back, and holds up his hand and says, hold on, there's been a change of plans. The man who is holding the knife literally hisses like a snake, and as he does so, you see that he actually has a serpent tongue that comes out, a forked tongue, and he says, what do you mean? We had a deal. The Bruja vampire smiles and says, and now I have a better deal. You can take this to your masters and tell them what you want. But in this case, the Camarilla made a sweeter offer. The man hisses, and his eyes, like serpents, kind of glare, and he says, you will regret this. Mark my words. He turns and sparks out of the room. Bruja looks at it, smiles, and says, if it's to let you take this, you must have more sense to realize. Takes you out of the pocket and locks.
Is he kind of muffled for everyone else?
Yes. Allowing you to use.
Let's try not to interrupt, guys.
Closer to the mic, Shogun.
Pardon me?
You're a
We
little
can't
muffled.
quite hear you. Yeah.
Here, hold on.
Seth, don't tell us what to do. We couldn't hear him.
I can hear him clearly. What?
What?
Okay, but Seth, here's the thing. The rules for the conversation are slightly different when we're playing this game, right?
True.
It's not a normal conversation. If there's something that needs to be clarified, we're very free. Yeah.
Well, I'm enjoying the show. Let's keep it going.
It's worse.
No, it's awful. What did you do?
Hold on.
Okay, no, you're good.
There you
You're
go.
good.
Testing.
Yeah,
Perfect.
crispy.
Is good or bad?
Good.
I can hear you. The last thing I was able to make out. Wait, the last thing I was able to make out was him saying, "It looks like it's your lucky day, kid."
It looks like it's your lucky day, kid. You must have more friends than we realized. And he unlocks your handcuffs and says, "You're free to go." And he gestures to the door. And the man who has the serpent eyes says, "You will live to regret this betrayal." And he leaves before you.
And I look at the undone handcuffs and I say something like, "Oh, sweet," and then I start walking. One
Okay,
sec.
so you-
No, wait, one sec. Sorry, I was out having a smoke and some skip driver thought I was the person who ordered the skip. Okay, so I look down at the handcuffs and I say, "Oh, sweet," like very enthusiastically, and then I leave.
You leave, okay. So you walk out the door and you find yourself encountering 3 men, right? Well, the man who's with you and 2 men sitting beside an attractive woman with red hair who is sitting beside them. There's drugs on the table and alcohol. And the man says, "Well, I don't know why you wanted him, but he's yours now." We're assuming at this point that you have paid or will transfer the $50,000. I guess the guy says, "I expect $50,000 deposited in this account by next morning," and he hands you his information for the transfer.
She
And he
takes
says,
the.
"Well, he's your problem now.
Wait.
Go ahead.
So I notice I sort of pick up on the context clues. So I'm saying, and I look at Estremia's character. I look at Estremia's character, and I say, "Oh, are you the one who saved me? Thanks. That was a real sticky situation I got myself into. Huh? I gotta pay attention more. My street smarts aren't exactly all there."
She glances at the boy. Or man, boy. Your
Young
character's
man.
Boyish.
He's like,
boyish.
Yeah.
She glances at him while he's talking, but her eyes move back to the person who she promised money to, taking the card, and she winks at him. "You've got it." She stands up, walking towards Sid. She kind of grabs him by the back of the shirt and starts pulling him towards her motorcycle without saying anything.
I'm
So,
like,
as you guys
I
are
say,
leaving,
yeah, I say, hey, you don't need to be so rough.
Relax. I gotta
so
get
as
you
you
out of
guys
here.
are leaving, so first of all, Estremia, as you grab him, you notice that his pink aura has now changed to like a bright yellow, and again you can see his like rabbit ears and his rabbit tail with your transcendent vision. The 3 men behind you stand up, all 3 of them, and they're just like staring at you really menacingly, and all of them have their hands on the holsters of their weapons. And they're just like watching you leave, but like holding on to the holsters of their guns and just like glaring at you as you leave. And you see that the Ruja has lifted a cell phone to his ears and he's making a phone call as he's like kind of staring at you and talking on the phone.
We've got to get out of here, she says in a low tone to Sid.
I
She
whisper back, "What's the plan?"
She hands him her helmet that she had for on her bike. "Put this on. Get on the back." She gets on the bike, patting a spot behind her.
Okay, I get on the bike.
All right. Just hold on tight. I have a feeling this is going to be quite the drive. And she starts her bike, and she waves to the men goodbye in a more friendly way, charming way, before she pulls off onto the street.
And as you do that, I say, not quite yelling, but maybe slightly higher than a speaking tone, adventure! Yeah!
Okay, so I think if you guys are in agreement, that might be a good place to wrap up this gaming session. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, for sure.
That works.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for playing. Everybody give yourself 6 experience points. 6 experience points, just write that down for all the players. Thank you, Shad. Thank you, Lucy. And thank you, Sid, for playing. I hope you will continue, and anyone who wants to join the next campaign session, just make a character in the World of Darkness channel on the Temple Mount Discord server, and you can also listen to all the episodes of this campaign on our podcast on YouTube and BitChute. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to kick out the bot, and then we will talk a little bit. One sec.
That was amazing, man.